I found something in the Epstein files that is mind-blowing, and I want to tell you about it. So sorting through all the files that have been released by the Justice Department, I came across something I was in some ways looking for, which is a directive from the FBI to New York law enforcement authorities to stand down their investigation into Epstein. The directive took place 5 days after Jeffrey Epstein's arrest. What's even more remarkable about this directive is that it also applied to the Special Victims Unit, which is a part of the NYPD that is specially trained and equipped to investigate crimes against minors and crimes of sexual abuse. And therefore, the FBI was basically closing off this avenue. And what's also remarkable is that the documents that have now been revealed from the Justice Department show that the District Attorney of New York was engaged in an ongoing investigation of Epstein and reaching out to his victims. In fact, the FBI directive to stand down came about because some of the victims started to speak out. And one of the victims went on NBC with Savannah Guthrie and gave an interview. And according to the FBI, they considered it a fire that they needed to put out, that the District Attorney of New York had reached out to the victim. And that's where they quickly turn around and give this a directive to stand down, to close off this kind of pursuit of Epstein investigations through the NYPD offices. And they reached out to the NYPD to shut these things down. And in subsequent documents, emails in January of the following year, there's also email exchanges with FBI officials in which they're saying that their assumption was that not only would the NYPD close off such actions or investigations, but so would the District Attorney of New York. And it's quite stunning because a large part of the allegations against Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and alleged co-conspirators happened in New York. That would be the epicenter of a lot of the crimes, the trafficking of the girls and young women, the sexual abuse of the girls and young women. Many of their allegations happened in the townhouse on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and to therefore close off the very law enforcement authorities who are closest to the ground, have investigative techniques, have connections to the local communities and things like that in order to investigate is astonishing, because that would be one of the avenues, the most productive avenue, I might say, to getting at other men involved in the perpetration of these crimes. And at the end of this video, I'll talk a little bit about what steps can be taken now, and now that we know about this. But the other aspects of these documents that I think are very revealing is that even though the FBI assumed that the District Attorney of New York would stand down, there's also evidence that not only did the District Attorney of New York have ongoing investigations at the time of Jeffrey Epstein's death, but that in more recent years, they've also been taking tips from victims through their lawyers and the like, and have had a robust investigation of one of the alleged co-conspirators, Leon Black. That story was very well documented by a recent piece in the Business Insider, and they go through 4 different women who made allegations of Leon Black, and steps that the District Attorney of New York was taking, including trying to obtain phone records, having obtained medical records, and the like. And it does seem as though at the end of the day, that particular path ended in a dead end, but it definitely shows active investigation of potential co-conspirators. And one of the other pieces of this puzzle is that some of the internal documents that describe the District Attorney of New York's investigation also point to another individual. The other individual is Jes Staley. So Jes Staley was one of the senior executives at JPMorgan Chase. There have already been lots of reports documenting allegations that were made against him by Epstein victims. And there are a couple important revelations here. So one revelation is a June 2023 email of a memo for the record. It describes the Office of the District Attorney of New York as believing one of the victims that she had, in fact, been abused by Jes Staley, though they did not have corroboration at the time. It doesn't indicate that there's necessarily a full-blown investigation, because there are lots of documents that refer to the Leon Black investigation. I did not see any documents referring to the Jes Staley investigation or Jes Staley investigation as such. And so we don't know where that may have ended up. But it is quite something that Mr. Staley ends up in March of last year, 2025, admitting to a British court that he did have sexual intercourse with one of Jeffrey Epstein's quote-unquote assistants. And one might think that with that kind of information, it would then be cause to open or reopen a kind of a criminal probe. There are additional revelations about Mr. Staley in the newly released DOJ files, including documents by the Southern District of New York in what looks like almost a prosecution memo, but a tallying up of potential co-conspirators, and other documents have been revealed in recent years from civil litigation, including by the government of the Virgin Islands, which obtained various records of Staley's communications with Epstein that at a minimum, I would say, give rise to deep suspicions about his conduct. And he had told the UK court that it was just one occasion in which he had had sex with this woman, and it was consensual, whatever that might mean in the Epstein world. But the documents that were produced in the litigation by the government of the Virgin Islands seem to suggest a very different story. Let's just put it that way. So that's all being put together for you here. I went through all of the documents that were revealed by the Justice Department to put together actually a timeline. Last year, we put together a timeline that was about the federal law enforcement failures from like 1996 to 2025, FBI, Department of Justice and the like, just spanning all of those decades, all of those administrations, Democratic and Republican alike, just failing the girls and young women time and again over the years, that we now are also quite familiar with that as part of the story. But we thought that was the most comprehensive, detailed timeline at the time of the federal law enforcement failure. So I've now put together a new timeline of what happened with the New York law enforcement authorities. So at one level, NYPD, New York Police Department, and then what happened with the District Attorney of New York and what it was trying to do with some of these investigations. So I think it's super important for public education and the like. So what do we do about this? So there's a good story, in a sense, coming out of New Mexico just last week. So New Mexico's Attorney General last week revealed that, in fact, his offices had been told in 2019 to cease their criminal investigation, or had been requested, and this is the way in which he put it, a little bit milder, to cease their ongoing criminal investigation. And that's also stunning. Dovetails with what we're learning about NYPD. Not sure it was even really known by any of us that New Mexico had such a criminal probe. And he in fact refers to reopening it. So that means that it was ongoing and then reopening it now in light of the revelations coming from the Department of Justice. I don't know what exactly he might mean about the revelations, because he might just mean, well, there are lots of revelations that point to evidence of crime in New Mexico. I do wonder if he also means revelations that DOJ is doing gosh all for nothing, with respect to pursuing potential co-conspirators and other men involved in these crimes. But that points to where the New York authorities might go as well. There's certainly an opportunity for them. They might have, for all we know, have an ongoing criminal investigation. It's just not public and stated in the same way. And what's also interesting about the Attorney General is that he does this, and he notices that he does this. He announces that he does this on the heels of the New Mexico legislature unanimously setting up an Epstein Truth Commission, where it appears as though they will give the survivors an opportunity to be heard. And that's another pathway that is open, one would think, to the New York legislature, not only just to hear from the survivors in a forum in which it won't be a circus, like what's happening with the Republican-controlled House Oversight Committee. That just seems to be turning into a political circus by the leadership. But that would be an important venue for survivors, but it also is an important opportunity to look back and try to figure out what on earth happened with the standing down of investigations and the absence of accountability for so many years, when New York authorities and New Mexico authorities should have been well alerted to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and the massive criminal syndicate of trafficking and sex abuse that he was running for decades. So there's a positive note in terms of at least a direction that this can go that's not wedded to whatever Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and Kash Patel tell us, but it's rather a path of truth-seeking and accountability that can happen at the state and local level.